It's Sunday night. I'm going live. Why not? There's a lot to talk about when it comes to the Golden State Warriors. They still have one and maybe two openings on the roster they need to fill. And there's some names out there that are linked to the Golden State Warriors. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Anthony Edwards' comments playing for Team USA that implicated Steve Kerr. We're going to talk about JaVale McGee and Draymond Green's conversation that they had recently. JaVale McGee is a name we're definitely going to touch on. There's a lot to discuss, and it's all coming up next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Threads at Dog Wild. That's also the same handle I have at Instagram. I'm still on Twitter, aka Twix, part of the show. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Great to be joining all of you tonight on a Sunday evening. Miguel Teacher, what is up? Drew, what is up? Yes, I decided on a Sunday night at 11 p.m. Pacific to host an episode because why not? There's a lot to talk about. And I was just in the mood. So here we go. It is hard to fill content in the summer. It is not easy. There is not a lot going on in the NBA. So whenever there's actually content to discuss, and especially interesting content to discuss, I'm going to turn on the mic. I'm going to turn on the camera and just let it roll. So the first thing I want to discuss is the latest news regarding free agency. Now, the last time we had a show, I believe this was last week. Well, I had Scotty Farrell on the program. First of all, I love Scotty. I know that was a very that was an episode that didn't have a lot of Warriors content to it. Thank you for indulging me watching that show. I love Scotty. He's a legend in the broadcasting world. And before that, Kylan and I did a two-parter. But the last time we really talked about Warriors free agency, JaVale McGee was not available. JaVale McGee was still technically a member of the Dallas Mavericks. There was a lot of speculation pertaining to him possibly being available. Well, guess what, folks? JaVale McGee, at long last, is now available. The Dallas Mavericks are reportedly, this is courtesy of Shams Charania, who first broke the news, that the Dallas Mavericks are, the Markieff Morris part of this does not make a lot of sense, but they're signing Markieff Morris and in the process, waiving JaVale McGee. They stretched his contract. This is something NBA teams can do with players if they want to waive them before their guaranteed deal is up. You apply a stretch provision where you extend the money still owed over a number of years. So in JaVale McGee's case, I think he had one guaranteed year remaining. I don't know what the money total was off the top of my head. I apologize for not researching that, but let's say for the sake of argument, the Mavericks owed him, I think, $6 million for this upcoming season. They could stretch that out to, let's say, like $1 million per year over the next 6 years, hypothetically. So that's what the Mavericks did with JaVale. They stretched out the remainder of his contract. He is now an unrestricted free agent. I want JaVale McGee on the Golden State Warriors. To me, it is a no-brainer who the players should be that the Warriors sign this offseason for that 14th spot. And Rich Stubb, by the way, I don't know a lot about Ty. I've heard a couple people mention Ty's name in there. I'm not an expert on him, so I can't really talk about him today. I'll do my research just because people have brought him up. But JaVale McGee is who I want to focus on, and I want to play this soundbite of JaVale McGee with Draymond Green, his former teammate. It's I don't know if you folks have forgotten, but JaVale was a member of the Golden State Warriors for 2 years. They won championships both those years. JaVale left after year 2. He was getting underpaid with the Warriors, although the Lakers, I believe, also offered him a veteran minimum deal. But part of the appeal for LA, I believe, with JaVale McGee was he was promised more playing time. He wasn't getting a lot of run with the Golden State Warriors. Look, he's out there right now. He's available. I cannot emphasize enough how much of a difference he would make to this team, for the simple reason of you have to look at the NBA landscape, right? You have to look at who the Warriors are going to be competing against this upcoming season to actually win a title, right? It's like, what are the obstacles standing in their way? The Denver Nuggets, right? And the Denver Nuggets have Nikola Jokic, right? They also have Aaron Gordon, and they also have some depth. You look at the LA Lakers, who have a ridiculous front court. Anthony Davis, Vanderbilt, LeBron James, Rui Hachimura. They're a big team, but it goes further than that. If you look at the Clippers with Zubac and that front court, they got big players. If you look at even like the Dallas Mavericks, who gave up JaVale McGee because they have a lot of other big players on their roster. You look at the Memphis Grizzlies with the Steven Adams and Jaren Jacksons of the world. A lot of teams in the Western Conference have a lot of size that the Warriors are going to have to deal with. And right now, the Warriors are going to be countering all that size with Dario Saric, who I love. But Dario Saric is a bit more of a finesse player. He's not necessarily someone who is a rough and tumble, down low kind of guy. He's not an enforcer kind of guy. He's not known for his defense per se. And he's now considered to be one of the most important bigs on this Warriors roster. You have Trayce Jackson-Davis, a rookie. I love what we've seen from him so far. I loved what we saw from him in college, but he's still a rookie. We have no idea what we're going to get from him. And besides those two, you have Draymond Green, who's turning 34, who's 6'5", 6'6" with shoes. And you have Kevon Looney, who has already shown that he is a liability defensively against a lot of other bigs. Nikola Jokic destroyed him in the playoffs 2 seasons ago. Every time they match up, Nikola Jokic destroys Kevon Looney. Anthony Davis destroys Kevon Looney. I love Kevon Looney. I'll advocate for Looney to the end. I've nothing but adoration for Kevon Looney, Mr. Iron Man, who hasn't missed a game in 2 years now. But Kevon Looney cannot hold his own against some of the elite bigs in the NBA. And I'm not sitting here saying that someone like JaVale McGee is going to come in and just be a magical elixir for this Warriors roster. I'm not sitting here saying that with JaVale McGee, now Jokic is going to get shut down. Now Anthony Davis is going to be held to like 10 points, 5 rebounds. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, for the 10, 15 minutes a night that a player like JaVale McGee can give the Golden State Warriors, those are 10, 15 minutes of fouls that you don't have to worry about Draymond Green picking up. Those are 10 to 15 minutes of at least smart play, so that if the Anthony Davises and Nikola Jokic's of the world proceed to score, at least those buckets are going to have to be earned. They're going to have to work for those buckets. Those aren't going to be easy buckets. JaVale McGee does not make mistakes. He has a high basketball IQ. He understands the Warriors system. He stands above 7 feet. He is not a liability defensively. He's not a liability on either side of the ball. And the fact that he's now out there excites me, because I truly believe from the bottom of my heart that if JaVale McGee comes to the Warriors next year, that could be the difference. I will proclaim with confidence that the Warriors will be the favorites to win the title next year. I really will. As weird as it sounds, again, that JaVale McGee could be the difference, the Golden State Warriors go deep in all their championship runs. Most teams don't go 13, 14 deep on the rosters. This is very true, especially when it comes to the postseason. But that does not apply to the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors are an exception to that rule. They go deep. They use every player on that roster in their championship runs. They go 13, 14, 15 deep. And that will be no exception with this year's team if they want to be legitimate world championship contenders. And the fact that JaVale McGee is out there right now excites me. I haven't heard a single rumor pertaining to McGee and where he could be going. That could be a good thing in the sense that we haven't heard him linked to other teams. It's a bad thing because he hasn't been linked to the Warriors. There's another player that has recently been linked to the Warriors. I'm going to drop his name in just a moment. But JaVale McGee, to me, is the answer for what the Warriors need to do with that 14th spot. He is now available, and let's hope the Warriors do the smart thing, and let's hope JaVale wants to come back if the Warriors express interest. When we return in just a moment, I'm going to play sound from JaVale's appearance on Draymond Green's podcast earlier this season, where they talk about playing together, where the words that are coming out of each other's mouths do indicate a camaraderie that is still very much there and that it could still be a good fit. So we're going to talk about that and so much more when I come back in just a moment after we give some love to one of the official sponsors of the Locked On Podcast Network, and especially this show, and that's FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. And look, the NFL season is just around the corner. Niners fans, I'm sure you're seeing all the drama. They just got rid of Trey Lance. Nick Bosa is not signed yet. So regardless of how you feel, whether the Niners are your team or not your team, whoever your team is, the NFL season is just around the corner, and get ready for it with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's a deal. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For the everydayers, Kylan Mills will be back on the show with me this week. Paul McCaffrey of the KNBR Morning Show is planning on joining me, and we announce all the guests, the times, and so forth on our Twitter account. Follow us at Locked On Dubs. Jay Boogie in the chat is not a fan of the JaVale McGee discussion. Jay Boogie writes, quote, "The Warriors cannot afford to have a big who can't shoot. Makes zero basketball sense. Kevon Looney can't shoot. Draymond Green can't shoot." I mean, look, not every player on a roster has to be able to be a lethal shooter. I mean, some players have specific roles. You need size for defense. So the Warriors already have a lot of shooters. That's not a concern for me. And considering what the 14th roster spot represents, like, you're not getting someone who's expecting minutes. You're not adding someone who wants a big role, who needs the ball. You're getting someone who is going to be okay with not playing and who's going to be okay with getting limited run per night. The Warriors need size. SG Sports Talk Channel writes that you attended the Jug Life All-Star Celebrity Game that was hosted by JaVale McGee. I was there as well. I was covering that as media at the Oakland Coliseum. Super cool. I want to play this soundbite of JaVale and Draymond Green. Again, Draymond Green has his podcast, although I guess it's off during the summer, like most of the NBA. This was recorded some months back, but I want to play at least this clip, or at least part of this clip, just because it shows the camaraderie. It shows the knowledge that JaVale has of this team and the system. If you're nostalgic about the Warriors dynasty, you're going to love this clip. Here's just a brief snippet of JaVale McGee talking earlier this season with Draymond Green on the Draymond Green Show.
After your first year here, which I felt like at that time, DeAndre Jordan's still very prominent in the league. Arguably at that time, not really arguably, the best lob threat in the league at that time. You solidify yourself as arguably the best lob threat in the league. To this day, I always tell people, best lob threat I ever played with. You leave your body, you just throw it up anywhere. And see, one thing that I don't think people understand is when I say best lob threat, it's actually you and Andre Iguodala. But when I say best lob threat, it was that I could throw it up there, and if you can't dunk it, see, most guys, you throw a lob to it, and if they can't dunk it, they miss it, the ball go out of bounds. If you can't dunk it, you'll just grab the ball and come back down. Mm-hmm. And so you solidify yourself as arguably the best lob threat in the league. After year one with the Warriors, you had offers to go elsewhere for a little more money. Yeah. What made you say, "No, I'm not taking that. I'm gonna come back to the Warriors for a second year and take a minimum again"?
Tasting that championship, man. Seeing seeing what it took game 1 to game 82 to every game in the playoffs of what it took, the brotherhood that I felt, the energy, the way the Warriors organization treats their players. I had been to 3-4 teams, and the Warriors by far still to this day treat their players the best out of anybody. Just one aspect of the way that the Warriors does dinners on the road.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen that. And I've been on 4 teams after that, I believe.
We appreciate you, Joe, Peter.
For
appreciate
sure.
those dinners.
For sure. Just the aspect of that, being able to congregate with your teammates, not only your teammates, but your teammates, friends, and family, and not worrying about the bill. Just order whatever you want. We're all just going to congregate and fellowship and really enjoy. And that was one aspect. And I'm like, oh, I got to do this again. Like a million more ain't going to do it for me. I need to do this again. And it worked out.
Doesn't that sound like a player who loved being a part of the Warriors? I love the dinner aspect of it. I love the camaraderie aspect of it. Yes, Douglas Mikes, we are live right now. So just in case you're confused. So JaVale McGee, come to the Warriors. Come back. You're wanted. You're missed. You need size. The Warriors need size desperately. The Warriors clearly have made it a point to focus on high basketball IQ for the players that they add. JaVale has that. Please come to the Warriors. I will be confident this upcoming season that if JaVale McGee is added to this squad, the Warriors will win the title. I really am. So let's hope that happens. Another player that has been linked to the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors have tried out a lot of players. We've talked about a lot of them on this show. Glenn Robinson III was reported exclusively on this show that he worked out for the Warriors. He recently went on and worked out for the Boston Celtics. Now, I don't know if a workout occurred for this next player. And this is not a player that is exciting, Dub Nation, at least from the brief feedback I've heard. And yes, Rich Dub, I'm totally with you. I'm really hoping for JaVale McGee. And Douglas Mikes, look, the Warriors also have those two-way spots. Lester Quinones is almost certainly going to get one of them. But Harry Giles III would be excellent for that other one. They might even have 2 other two-way spots, depending on what the NBA decides on in terms of teams having either 2 or 3 two-way positions. I haven't gotten really like a clear ruling on that yet. The rule this year with the new CBA is that of the 30 NBA teams, the average number of players on a roster has to equal or exceed 14.5, meaning if the majority of NBA teams are only fielding 14 players on their rosters because of the extra two-way spot, the NBA will rescind that third two-way spot and force every team to just have 2 two-way players. So I have no idea like when the NBA is going to announce if teams will have 2 or 3 two-way players. But regardless, Harry Giles III would be awesome. I'd absolutely love that. Glenn Robinson III for the 15th spot. Or if JaVale McGee has no interest and if the Warriors decide they don't want to get it big for the 14th spot, Glenn Robinson III is personally one of my favorites. So I'm totally with you on that. But JaVale McGee is clearly at the top of my wish list. He would excite me tremendously. And Jay Boogie, like Hugh keeps coming in the chat wanting shooters. The Warriors have shooters. It's not like they're limited. And here's the other problem, Jay Boogie. I follow what you're saying, but you're not going to get a shooter with this deep, this late, in the NBA offseason. Like, you're not going to find some magical player at number 14 who's going to be like a second or third scorer on this roster. But you can find a legitimate big this late in the offseason, a player like JaVale McGee. And not to mention, you bring up that Lakers series in the chat, and you think, and you express that a lack of shooters was the reason why they lost that series. I just can't disagree with you more. The Warriors were killed on the glass. The Warriors had no answers for that Lakers front court. The Warriors' lack of size in that series was noticeable. It was profound. I still maintain if Jonathan Kuminga cracks the rotation in that series, we might have a different result. It's not like the Warriors got their asses kicked by the Lakers. That was a relatively close series. But if they had a JaVale McGee type, someone who can give you 15, 20 minutes out there just to make life difficult for the Anthony Davises, even for like a LeBron James type, LeBron was just easily walking into that paint night after night, scoring on the Warriors. JaVale McGee type makes those kinds of easy baskets not easy anymore. To me, like, this team needs size. This team is not big enough, and JaVale is the answer. Now, a player that's also out there, and the Warriors have reportedly expressed interest. This is courtesy of Sam Amico, who's been covering the NBA for a long time, that a player that the Warriors have expressed interest in, and I'll share the screen capture of the story as well for the YouTube viewers, is Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin at 34, he played for the Celtics last year. He's clearly on the tail end of his career. But Sam Amico writes, quote, "It is believed the 76ers and Warriors are among some of the other teams interested in Griffin, as may be the Clippers, the team with which Griffin's career began. He has been an all-star 5 times, the last coming with the Pistons during the 2018-19 season," unquote. Usually when reporters or columnists like Sam Amico publishes these kinds of little nuggets of information, they're almost certainly getting it from the agents. Now, whether or not Blake Griffin's agent is leaking this type of information to generate interest from him, that could be the answer here for what's going on. It also could be that the Warriors are legitimately interested. Now, look, a lot of people will probably frown, an SB Sports Talk channel. Thank you for, this is the only time I will support you interrupting the show. Thank you for the love. Right back at you, man. But most of Dub Nation, I'm guessing, is not very stoked about the idea of Blake Griffin. All right. And I get it. Okay. He's no longer the lob threat he once was. Defense was never really like something he was notorious for. It wasn't necessarily like a huge strength of his. But I wouldn't hate it. And I wouldn't hate it for this reason. His intellect is not lacking. Like, again, I'm bringing up this phrase basketball IQ a lot on tonight's show because that's been the theme for who the Warriors want on the roster, are individuals with high basketball IQ, individuals who aren't prone to make mistakes and who also have their eyes on the prize, right? Which is winning the title this year. Blake Griffin does not have a ring. There would be some extra motivation from him, but I just like the fact that if you bring Blake Griffin in, you are getting a guy who, regardless of his limited athleticism at this stage of his career, he still is a big ass body who is still going to get rebounds, who is still going to make life a lot more difficult for other bigs to back their way down toward the basket. And offensively, again, like, the Warriors their offense has still been outstanding without any inside presence, right? Like, they didn't have anyone last year who could give them easy buckets inside, right? That's been something sorely lacking for this team. And it's what size gives you, among many things. You get easy baskets, whether that comes in dunks, whether that comes in layups, offensive rebounds as putbacks. And Blake Griffin, at a minimum, can get you a few extra buckets in a game offensively that you might not otherwise get because they don't have anyone else like Blake Griffin on this roster. So I'm not sitting here advocating for Blake Griffin. I'm not sitting here saying Blake Griffin is the answer, but I wouldn't hate it either. Because again, he brings intelligence. Chris Paul knows him as well as anybody, I think. So if Chris Paul is endorsing this pursuit, maybe Chris Paul knows something, but Blake Griffin is on the radar. And I'm very curious. SG Sports Talk is writing, and this will segue to the next topic. Is writing that you're going to be going to opening night against the Suns, and you can't wait for Chris Paul's name to be introduced in the starting lineups, which brings up an interesting point, whether or not Chris Paul is going to start. We don't know that. I like the fact that you're kind of insinuating that he's going to be cracking the starting lineup. I'm very curious for that. Rich Dub, by the way, writes something interesting that Blake Griffin would take away from Jonathan Kuminga. What I'm really hoping for, I don't know if this is going to happen, but what I do hope for is that Steve Kerr is cognizant this coming season of the fact that Jonathan Kuminga and Blake Griffin are two very different players. What I mean by that is if you're playing Blake Griffin, you're playing him as a 5, as a relief 5 to play 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is you need from him to make life easier for your players on the inside in terms of rebounding and easy buckets. Blake Griffin doesn't have a horrible three-point shot either, by the way. But I just hope that Blake Griffin and Jonathan Kuminga are not in the same conversation. Jonathan Kuminga should not be out there defending 5s. Like, Jonathan Kuminga should not be out there defending centers. Blake Griffin should. So I follow what you're saying, that if a player like Blake Griffin comes in, you're worried he might steal time from Jonathan Kuminga. I hope that is not an issue because they play very different positions. I just hope that's not going to be something that becomes an issue. But nonetheless, Chris Paul, I bring him up because my good friend Mark Medina, who's currently writing for a website called Sports Kita, he's been covering the NBA for a long time. I believe he's a former Warriors beat reporter for the San Jose Mercury News. He did an interview recently with an individual named Brandon Payne, who's a basketball trainer. He works with the Golden State Warriors. And he did this Q&A with them, an exclusive interview. And the one part of it that stuck out to me is Brandon Payne worked with both Stephen Curry and Chris Paul this summer. And he was quoted in the story, and I'll get that screen capture up as well. I might as well continue that trend for all the YouTube viewers tonight. What he said was awesome. And I'll read it verbatim. So Mark Medina asked Brandon Payne, what was the dynamic like between Steph and Chris in their offseason work together? And he's referring to this most recent offseason. Payne responded, quote, "It was great. They are two guys that have the same mindset. We're here to win, so let's do it. I was very impressed with the instant chemistry those guys had. It was fun to watch. There was so much ball movement. For a pickup basketball game, that was some of the most impressive ball movement I've ever seen," unquote. I am elated and fascinated to see what goes on with Chris Paul and the Golden State Warriors this year. I still don't think he's going to be a starter. I do think those conversations will happen where the Warriors have to, in some regard, tell Chris Paul, dude, like your value here is coming off the bench. Your value here is running a second unit that has players like Kuminga and Moses Moody and your former teammate Dario Saric, and with you bringing out the best of them. I'm curious to see Klay Thompson have his rotation staggered, so he's playing minutes with Chris Paul this year. That is his value. If Chris Paul is a starter, I mean, we've been talking a lot about small lineups in tonight's show, and that would make things tiny. That would be a diminutive lineup out there, which I hope we don't see. So anyway, so that's what Brandon Payne, again, he's a Warriors trainer. He works with these guys, and he had those amazing things to say about Stephen Curry and Chris Paul working out together. Now, the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr, is currently coaching Team USA in the FIBA World Cup. And the team's arguably best player, Anthony Edwards, has been in the news, right? And he's been in the news for some weird reasons. There was an article that was published by The Athletic, and I believe the reporter's name who published that was Joe Varden, who's covered the NBA for a while, if I'm not mistaken. And Joe Varden wrote a piece where he quoted Anthony Edwards, and I'm gonna show the screen capture of this as well for the viewers of the show. And the quote was, and I'll set you up here. So Anthony Edwards told Joe Varden that Steve Kerr had called him before the start of training camp for Team USA and had a discussion with Anthony Edwards about Edwards coming off the bench. And Edwards was quoted in this story. This is what he said, quote, "I mean, of course, I wasn't cool with it. If that's what it takes, I mean, I am willing to do it, but nah, I'm never cool with that." He said Dwayne Wade came off the bench when Kobe played. I was like, all right, we don't have a Kobe, but all right, but it was cool, unquote. And that was quoted verbatim. I don't know if Joe Varden had to include all the ums and the likes, but anyways, so Anthony Edwards, the insinuation from that attribution is that Anthony Edwards was not very cool with coming off the bench, and he's been playing so lights out for Team USA that he's now in the starting lineup. That change was made very fast, and Anthony Edwards came out and was not very happy about that quote. And in fact, I believe he went to his Instagram account. I don't know where this snippet is exactly from, but here is what Anthony Edwards had to say. This came out yesterday or today in regards to that story. He blasted Joe Vardon, and here is Anthony Edwards responding to how he was quoted.
Y'all losers beat it, man. Y'all taking a little comment too far. I didn't say that to Steve Kerr. I was thinking that when he said I was coming off the bench. Y'all doing too much. Y'all going too far. That's my dog, man. Steve Kerr locked in. You know what I'm saying? We talk every day. Y'all doing. I hate y'all. Y'all always doing that, bro. Just damn, bro. Just interview and go on about your business, bro. Yeah, y'all some losers, man. Beat it.
Anthony Edwards actually was not cool with the way Joe Vardon made him out in that quote, and he didn't call Joe out by name, but that was a reporter who wrote that story. And he actually said good things about Steve Kerr. So, yeah, kudos to Anthony Edwards for shutting that one down, because that was a line of rhetoric that was clearly going to possibly get way bigger than it should, right? I mean, the insinuation early on was that Edwards and Steve Kerr were not getting along, maybe, and Anthony Edwards quashed that. Anthony Edwards also had some nice things to say about Eric Spoelstra, one of the assistant coaches on Team USA. He came out to praise Heat culture, and I thought this was kind of interesting. Here is Anthony Edwards real fast talking about Spo being an assistant coach and Heat culture.
He's been dope, man, bringing a lot of energy to the Heat culture. Yeah. It's exciting to see. His first day with the scout, I was like, okay, I see what they mean when they say Heat culture. Like, he came in with a lot of energy, getting right to the point, super precise with the details. So it's dope.
There you go. So as he says right there, Heat culture, it's where it's at. So that's some Anthony Edwards clips for you. Just wanted to play those real quick. Shifting gears, the ESPN, where are we on the clock here right now? Okay, we got a few more minutes here. ESPN's quote unquote experts came out with their predictions. This article was on ESPN Plus, and it was basically a panel interview of ESPN staff, whoever their summer forecast panel is. They voted on a myriad of awards, and I'll show you these for the YouTube viewers. Who should have gone on there, or who they picked. I'm sorry. These are the predictions, and I'm showing this partly because one of the members of the Golden State Warriors, or a few of them actually, are in these rankings. So they first picked who they think is going to win NBA MVP. Let's zoom in a little more there. So who will win NBA MVP? So they picked Nikola Jokic. That's their favorite. Very unimaginative. They picked Giannis Antetokounmpo second. They think Luka Doncic is third. Jason Tatum fourth. Joel Embiid, the reigning MVP, rounds out the top five. And just outside the top five, Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry tied for 7. Okay. I mean, unimaginative, but nothing really surprising here. I think Anthony Edwards cracking the top 10 is kind of big. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander also cracking the top 10. Rookie of the year. Little surprising that Chet Holmgren is who they picked for Rookie of the Year. That's the summer panel, whoever that is, for ESPN. Victor Wembanyama got second place in terms of the total votes. Scoot Henderson rounds out your top 3. I would personally think Victor Wembanyama would be the favorite. I don't know, but who knows? Let me see if anyone in the chat has any predictions here on that. Nothing. The chat's gone quiet here. So moving on. Defensive Player of the Year. This is where the Warriors have routinely been screwed over. The ESPN panel of quote unquote experts, so ridiculous that they call themselves that. They believe that Jaren Jackson Jr., the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, will win it again next year. Bam Adebayo second, Giannis Antetokounmpo third. Evan Mobley of the Cleveland Cavaliers, the youngster, is fourth, tied with Marcus Smart. And then Draymond Green, man, who just completely gets disrespected year after year, is 7th. I don't understand why he is always so low. He is literally the only player on this list who can guard 1 through 5 effectively. So that's your Defensive Player of the Year predictions. And then this is a weird one, 6th Man of the Year. And this plays off what we heard earlier. I forgot who it was that said that they're excited for opening night because they're going to see Chris Paul announced in the starting lineup. I don't know if that's going to happen, but Chris Paul, according to ESPN's summer panel of experts, is their prediction to win the Sixth Man of the Year award. Following Chris Paul, Austin Reeves of the Lakers, Russell Westbrook third, Tyler Hero fourth, even though he probably won't be with the Miami Heat, and tied for fifth, rounding out the top five, Emmanuel Quickley of the Knicks, and a solid pick, in my opinion, Malik Monk, who played outstanding basketball for the Sacramento Kings. So those are some predictions for you there from ESPN's panel of quote-unquote experts. Most improved player, they think the favorite there is Cade Cunningham, followed by Jabari Smith and Evan Mobley. No Warriors listed there. And then another, I don't know if it's surprising or not, but an omission that I certainly noticed, Coach of the Year, no Steve Kerr. The favorite for that to win it will be Mark Denault of the Oklahoma City Thunder, Spoelstra second, and Mike Malone of the Nuggets third. Jason Kidd is fifth on this list, but no Steve Kerr. Those are your panel of experts from ESPN. Any final thoughts? Let me see if anyone else has anything. Kurt Porter has, I think, missed most of the show because I spent a lot of it raving about JaVale McGee. You're asking if he's going to be great in the Warriors. I think if JaVale McGee is on the Warriors are winning the whole thing. I really do. They are my firm prediction. If they don't get a big with that 14th spot, that's a whole other show. I have no idea, honestly. I don't have a prediction. I really don't. That's how much I value JaVale McGee in terms of coming to the Warriors. So I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name real quick as we wrap up the show here. Sayami. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. You write trade idea. The Golden State Warriors send Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney, and I'm guessing a first round pick to the 76ers for Joel Embiid. Look, I would love that trade. I don't think there's a chance in hell the 76ers bite on that. Daryl Morey is notorious for trying to rip off other teams, and I think the Warriors would be getting would be winning that trade. I love the trade. I just don't think there's a chance in hell Philly would do that. And look, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Philly. That's an interesting one there as well. The Philadelphia 76ers, we have no idea if it was a troll move, if it was genuine, but they wished James Harden the other day happy birthday on Twitter, and it was sus. It looked sketchy beyond no relief. Look, I would love Joel Embiid on the Warriors. I really would. And I think we're going to wrap up the show there. Thank you so much for joining me for this impromptu late Sunday night edition of Locked On Warriors. Kylan Mills will be joining me this week. Paulie Mack of the KNBR Morning Show is going to join me. I was hyping up a Warriors assistant, but that's been postponed. Most of the Warriors are on vacation right now, and so we're going to revisit that toward the start of training camp. So stay tuned for that information and so much more. Follow me on Threads. I'm part of it, man. I bought into Threads. I'm liking it. It's growing. That's a cool thing. I'm actually now mostly on Threads for getting my information. I still have to hop over to Twitter sometimes just because there's so many more people still on Twitter. But follow me on Threads. I'm there. I'm active at Dog Wild. And on Twitter, the show is available there. You can follow us on Twitter or Twix or X or whatever it's called at Locked On Dubs. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, we'll be back at this soon. Go Warriors. If there's any news for that 14th spot, we will be live immediately. There will be no hesitation. Until then, have a great night, folks. Have a great start to your week. I can't believe it's probably Monday when you're listening to this. Monday's here again. Hope it's a good one, folks. We'll be back at this soon.